Have you ever stopped to think about who's really running the show in Nepal's government? It's definitely not just one person calling all the shots. It's actually a whole system, a complex machine designed to create laws, carry them out, and make sure everything is fair. Today, we're going to pull back that curtain and take a close look at exactly how this machine works.
So it all boils down to this one big question. How does Nepal's federal government actually work? I know it can seem kind of complicated from the outside, but we are about to break it all down into a really simple framework. By the end of this, you'll have a crystal clear picture of who holds the power and why.
Okay, here's our game plan for this journey. First, we'll start with the foundation, which is the Constitution. Then we'll explore the three main branches of government, the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. And to wrap it all up, we'll see how they all connect and keep each other in check.
You know, every government needs a rule book, a master plan, and for Nepal, that's the Constitution. And it's so much more than just a piece of paper, it's the actual blueprint for the entire system of power we're about to dive into.
Now, the Constitution calls Nepal a federal democratic republic. So what on earth does that actually mean in simple terms? Well, it means power isn't all concentrated in one place. Instead, it's shared across three different levels: federal, provincial, and local. For today, we're zooming in on that very top level, the federal government.
All right, so where does all the day-to-day action happen? That would be the executive branch. Seriously, if the government were a car, the executive is the engine. It's the part that's actually moving, doing things, and getting the country from point A to point B.
The name executive kind of gives it away, right? Its main job is to execute the laws that Parliament passes. This is the branch that manages, well, basically everything, from national security and public services to all the different government ministries. Now, here's where things get really interesting, and honestly, where a lot of people get a little confused. The executive has two main leaders. First, you got the president, who is the head of state. It's a super important and respected role, but it's largely ceremonial. The real day-to-day power, the person actually running the government, is the prime minister, the head of the executive.
But the prime minister doesn't fly solo. They lead a team called the Council of Ministers, which you probably know as the cabinet. You can think of them as the heads of different government departments like health, finance, education. And here's the key part. They are all responsible, as a group, to the parliament for their decisions.
Okay, so if the executive implements the laws, who actually makes them in the first place? Well, that brings us to our second pillar, the legislature. This is the federal parliament, and it's designed to be the voice of the people.
Nepal's parliament is what's called bicameral, and that's just a fancy word that means it's made up of two different houses or chambers that have to work together to create and pass laws.
So the first and lower house is called the House of Representatives, and it's the bigger of the two, with 275 members. And then you have the second or upper house, the National Assembly, which is quite a bit smaller, with just 59 members. And that size difference is pretty important. The House of Representatives is the big one because it's directly elected to represent what the people want right now. The National Assembly, on the other hand, is formed differently. Its members are chosen by provincial leaders, and it's designed to represent the interests of the states themselves. So what's Parliament's real power? Well, yeah, of course, its main job is making laws. But it also has a couple of other huge responsibilities. It controls the money. It has to approve the entire national budget. And, maybe most importantly, it acts as the government's watchdog, holding ministers accountable for everything they do.
So we've got a branch that makes the laws and a branch that carries them out. But who makes sure those laws are actually fair and don't break the rules of the Constitution? Well, that's the job of our third and final pillar, the judiciary, the ultimate guardian of that rulebook. Nepal's court system has a pretty clear three-level structure. At the bottom, at the local level, you've got the district courts. One step up from them are the high courts. And then, at the very, very top, the highest court in the land is the Supreme Court.
And the Supreme Court's job is just massive. It is the final say on what the Constitution means. It has this incredible power called judicial review, which is the ability to look at any law and strike it down if it's unconstitutional. It's also the ultimate protector of our rights and the referee when the different levels of government disagree.
All right, it's time for the final piece of the puzzle. These three branches, executive, legislature, and judiciary, they don't just work in their own little bubbles. They are all part of a very carefully designed system of checks and balances that make sure they all work together. And this whole system is built on a core idea called the separation of powers. The thinking is simple. You divide up authority so that no single branch of government can ever become too powerful and take over. It's not about slowing things down, it's about keeping things safe.
So what are the big responsibilities that only the federal government gets to handle? Well, the Constitution gives it exclusive power over the major national issues. You know, the big stuff, like defense, foreign policy, printing money, and issuing passports.
So, let's pull it all together for a super quick recap. You have the executive, led by the Prime Minister, which implements laws. You have the legislature, our two-house parliament, which makes the laws. And you have the judiciary, with the Supreme Court at the top, which interprets those laws. Make, implement, interpret. It's a system in constant motion.
And that really brings us to our final thought. I know this can all seem like a pretty high-level civics lesson, but every single part of this system, from the laws that Parliament passes to the rights the judiciary protects, has a direct impact on our daily lives. So the real final question is for you to think about. How does this whole structure shape the world you live in every single day?